What if you could look into someone's eyes and give them a command, and they would have to do it no matter what?
I, Lelouch v. Britannia, command you, all of you, die!
That is the power of the Geass. The power of absolute obedience. The power to make anything you want happen. But what if it happened in a way you never wanted?
Stop it. Don't.
What if the Geass made you destroy everything you cared for?
Must I atone for this sin? Is this a cross I have to bear too?
Isolating you, torturing you, making you wish you never used its power.
The price you're going to pay for using your Geass on them is a dear one.
As you realize that the Geass treats you no different than its victims because you were never in control.
I am going to create a world where Nonali can live happily. To do that, I will obliterate Britannia!
To explore the psychological sledgehammer that is the Geass, we must look at the series' protagonist Lelouch, a prince betrayed by the most powerful nation, Britannia, after the assassination of his mother, which left his sister paralyzed. They're shipped off as political hostages to Japan, where they enjoyed a peaceful life until Britannia conquers Japan. During the conflict, the two fake their deaths, hiding at an academy. So Lelouch has every reason to want power. He wants to protect his sister Nonali, but is powerless to do so. He wants to find his mother's killer, but is powerless to do so. He wants to destroy Britannia and create a gentle world for his sister, but is powerless to do so. However, one day, all of that changes. Attempting to help out crash victims, Lelouch is roped into a battle between the Japanese resistance and Britannia. And in the middle of the chaos, he encounters Cece, a mysterious girl with green hair who offers him real power. But it comes with an ominous warning that the power will completely isolate him and that there is a price which remains unnamed. Lelouch did not care. He would pay any price to bring down Britannia, thus obtaining the power of the Geass, which manifests differently based on your desires and personality. And for Lelouch, it becomes the ability to control anyone with his command, as he orders the soldiers to die, and they do it with a smile on their faces. The scene is a massive win for Lelouch, but it also proves how he's the Geass's perfect victim. Because Lelouch's intelligence is cracked, but he also has an ego to match, believing himself right over everyone else. His worldview is shaped by the means justifying the ends. So Cece's warnings are irrelevant as long as he gets what he wants. And this is what the Geass will use to trap him, because it is a power with its own evil ambition. And the first step is to get Lelouch addicted, because the more he thinks he's in control, the more he is not. Lelouch's first step in taking down Britannia is to defeat his half-brother Clovis, the reason behind this fight, in the Shinjuku ghetto. Battles in this world happen through giant mechs called nightmares, and Lelouch learns his power needs direct eye contact. So he tricks a soldier into vacating her nightmare and uses the Geass to steal it. And the power guarantees his victory because the machine allows him to access enemy communication, revealing Clovis's game plan. Lelouch uses it to arm the Japanese resistance, creating an army, and enemy intel makes winning easy, all leading to a face-to-face confrontation with Clovis. Lelouch uses the Geass to learn about his mother's death, but Clovis has no idea, pointing to their half-sister Cornelia. Britannia is a kingdom ruled through might, naturally discarding the weak like Nonali. So, to eliminate that world, Lelouch will kill every member of Britannian royalty, starting with Clovis, completely unaware that he starts a sinister chain of events and an addiction to the Geass's power. Because during the battle before obtaining the Geass, Lelouch runs into an old friend, Suzaku. When he was shipped off as a political hostage, Suzaku was the closest friend he and Nonali had. And when the soldiers came for Lelouch, Suzaku risks everything to protect him, a debt Lelouch can never repay. But by using the Geass, Lelouch becomes the very reason Suzaku would die. Because Clovis's death creates a power vacuum, allowing a radical noble, Jeremiah, to take control. After conquering Japan, Britannia named it Area 11 and its residents 11s, and Suzaku is one of them. Suzaku joined the Britannian army to change it from the inside, and Jeremiah did not like that. So he pins Clovis's death on Suzaku, which conveniently covers up their incompetence in protecting Clovis. And the news of Suzaku's execution is broadcast everywhere, devastating Nanali. Rather than helping her, Lelouch becomes the reason for her pain, as the Geass offers Lelouch the first of several impossible choices. He either comes forward as Clovis's killer but gives up his life with Nanali, or he lets Suzaku die, killing an irreplaceable friend. And this choice is what forces Lelouch to create Zero, an alter ego to fight Britannia without any risk. And Suzaku's rescue is brilliant because when they try to shoot Lelouch, he reveals his trump card. In Shinjuku, the Resistance stole a weapon reported as poison gas, but that was a lie since CC was in the canister. Only Clovis and the upper command knew that, so Jeremiah and the rest of the army still believe it's poison gas. So if they shoot Lelouch, they assume he'd release the poison gas, killing the crowd. But in reality, there is no poison, just gas. Also, in the process, Lelouch claims responsibility for killing Clovis, redeeming Suzaku's name, and he also controls Jeremiah with the Geass to save Suzaku. But this plays right into the Geass's plan, because to get Lelouch addicted to its power, the Geass sells an illusion that sure, the means to defeat Britannia have dire consequences, like setting up Suzaku's execution, but Lelouch can use the Geass to make those consequences disappear. This is what the Geass wants him to think, because it creates an even bigger consequence. Because Lelouch declaring he killed Clovis and escaping on live TV humiliates Britannia, emboldening rogue Japanese resistance members to strike back and do what Lelouch did. And in the process, they threaten Lelouch and Nanali's happiness. Because their friends were everything to them. They're what made the life at the academy feel like home. Millie, Shirley, Nina, all of whom Lelouch puts in danger. Because the rogue faction inspired by him take them hostage in a hotel jacking. Again, the Geass presents Lelouch with an impossible choice. Because when it comes to fighting Britannia, the hotel jacking is an absolute win. In the hotel, they would hold a meeting, dictating access to a crucial resource Britannia needs, a direct blow to their power. But the rogue faction will sacrifice hostages until their demands are met, so Lelouch's friends will die. Ultimately, Lelouch chooses to save his friends, again, fixing the consequences of the Geass by using the Geass. Because in a face-to-face confrontation with the leader of the rogue faction, Lelouch orders him to die. This is the highlight reel for Lelouch. He's convinced that the Geass is no threat. His friends are all alive because of this power. And when Lelouch is at the very top, the illusion begins to crack.
Welcome, Zero. Care for a dance?
Because Clovis is nothing compared to his next opponent, Cornelia, who he knows holds the key to his mother's death. And the first time they collide, Lelouch is utterly humiliated. She beats him so bad, he is forced to create his own army, the Black Knights, consisting of resistance members loyal to Zero. He positions them as heroes of justice, fighting crime and corruption. And soon they start receiving support from everywhere, weapons, money, and intelligence, which reveals Cornelia's plan to attack the base of the Japanese resistance, setting up their second fight. And you can see how the Geass begins to poison Lelouch's mind, as the power of absolute obedience steals the victim's will, placing Lelouch as the only judge of what happens. Lelouch's leadership also begins to reflect that, as he manipulates his men to fight for a cause they don't want. He promises them a free Japan, dangling that dream in front of their face. But he's lying. He built the Black Knights to protect Nanali. Japan doesn't matter. Lelouch begins to see the world through a lens of only what he wants. And this gets evil in the Battle of Narita, his second confrontation with Cornelia. Because his troops are heavily outnumbered and want to retreat, but Lelouch cuts off their only escape path, leaving a single choice: fight or die. Which was a lie because many of them fight and die. And Lelouch's next move is the point of no return. Because while Cornelia fights the resistance, Lelouch springs a trap. He uses explosives to create a catastrophic landslide, weakening Cornelia's forces, but also buries countless civilians in a stony coffin. And the parallels are beautiful because just like Britannia discards the weak like Nanali, Lelouch does the same, killing countless civilians resembling the very force he wants to defeat. But even with this measure, it results in a draw. But there is a winner, the Geass. Because one of Lelouch's closest friends is Shirley. They spend every day together and she has a major crush on him. She is a vital part of the glue, holding together both his and Nanali's peaceful life. But the landslide Lelouch creates is the very one which buries Shirley's father alive. It emotionally devastates Shirley and everyone around Lelouch. The illusion is completely undone. There is no escaping this consequence using the Geass. You cannot bring the dead back to life. And Lelouch begins to question if his means really do justify the ends. Wishing he never used the power, he considers abandoning the role of Zero. But the Geass would never let him, because every use demands a price. For example, when he uses his Geass to steal the soldier of Valetta's nightmare, the consequences materialize in a horrific way. Because Lelouch had no idea victims retain their memories before the Geass. So Valletta questions how she lost her nightmare, only remembering a student on the battlefield. And when she notices Jeremiah's amnesia after Suzaku's escape, she connects the dots. She works with Jeremiah, suffering countless demotions because of his failure. But that leads her right to Lelouch, because Valletta's demotion charges her with finding relatives of the deceased following the landslide. And she comes across Shirley, helping identify her father, and notices she has a picture of the mysterious boy on the battlefield. Valletta contacts Shirley, explaining Lelouch's possible involvement with the Black Knights. Normally, Shirley would ignore her, but she wanted revenge on Zero for killing her father. So she follows Lelouch all the way to the battlefield while Valletta tails her. And here Lelouch and Cornelia clash for a third time. And we see how the events caused by the Geass consumed Lelouch's mind, trapping him in a vicious sunk cost fallacy, where he allows himself to justify any evil to defeat Britannia because he's already paid the price by killing Shirley's father. The Geass weaponizes Lelouch's ego, forcing him to keep on going. Because if he manages to bring down Britannia, he's still right. Sure, he killed Shirley's father, but the means justify the ends. He's a revolutionary hero who created a gentle world for his sister. But if he gives up now, he's nothing more than a murderer. He'll have to admit that he's wrong, and his ego won't allow it. So Lelouch has a diabolical plan. The Japanese resistance reach out to him for help since Cornelia is hounding them. So Lelouch boldly lies to his troops saying that he'll help, but in reality, he would use the resistance as bait. Lelouch plants explosives, and when Cornelia attacks, he blows up the people he's supposed to save. It weakens Cornelia, giving the Black Knights an opening. Again, Lelouch strips away the will of his army, all for what he thinks is right. But when he's about to win, the Geass betrays him. Because of the events, the power set in motion, Shirley is on the battlefield. Lelouch notices her and hesitates for a split second, cementing his defeat. And both Shirley and Valletta get to see who is under that mask. Shirley wants revenge, but she also has feelings for Lelouch. And her feelings went out because she defends Lelouch from Valletta using the same gun that was meant to kill Zero. But the psychological toll leaves Shirley broken, which allows another enemy to weaponize her. Because Lelouch's number one ally so far was Cece. Not only did she give him the Geass, but she's an immortal witch who saved him multiple times. But that also means there are others who received the power of the Geass, one being Mao. Even after Cece cut ties with him, he is obsessed with her. Mao's power is the ability to read minds, and he uses it to find Shirley. He goes inside her head to twist all of her insecurities, framing her as a murderer for shooting Valletta, convincing her that the only way to atone is for her and Lelouch to die. Which leads Shirley into trying to shoot Lelouch, but she can't, and completely breaks down. And thus the Geass presents Lelouch with another impossible choice: to let his friend suffer or to suffer himself. Lelouch chooses the latter, using the Geass to erase himself and every painful memory from Shirley's mind. Yet another point of no return because Shirley begs him not to. But now Lelouch is willing to use his power on his friends to impose his will as the Geass steals yet another part of his happy life. And from here, Lucia's consequences catch up one by one. First, by surprising Clovis on the battlefield in Shinjuku, Lelouch unknowingly creates his greatest enemy because an overwhelmed Clovis was desperate, allowing an experimental nightmare on the battlefield. And given the lack of pilots, Suzaku was chosen because he was the best candidate, and his performance was so cracked that he permanently claimed the machine and secured multiple wins against Lelouch. And when Lelouch learns Suzaku is his greatest enemy, it crushes him, because Suzaku also actively hurt his goals. Lelouch planned to turn the 11s against Britannia, creating an army, but Suzaku's wins elevated him to nobility, giving 11s a hope to earn power legitimately. A peaceful alternative to Zero. The consequences of the power, yet again, offer an impossible choice: kill or capture Suzaku. Lelouch tries the latter, but the mission goes horribly wrong as the Britannian ambush scatter his forces, and Lelouch finds himself stranded with Princess Euphemia, who made Suzaku her knight. He shares fond childhood memories with her as she and Nanali were close. He actually first encountered her in the hotel jacking and secretly spared her life. But with 2 encounters, Yuffie realizes that Lelouch is Zero. She would never reveal that secret because given their rosy past, she doesn't want to hurt him. The two bond before saying goodbye, but this tender moment cements Lelouch's greatest loss. Because Yuffie leaves the encounter determined, wanting to bring back the good old days, where she, Nanali, and Lelouch were family. So she gives up her claim to the throne to enact the Special Administrative Zone, where 11s and Britannians have equal rights. And the peaceful proposal crushes Lelouch's plans because it's easier to side with Britannia than fight against it. And when Yuffie offers him a chance to work together on this, ultimately Lelouch accepts and surrenders, because refusal marks him the enemy of peace and he's no match for Yuffie's kindness. But unlike last time where the Geass indirectly betrays him, this time it directly betrays him. In a closed room while signing the treaty, Lelouch drops his guard about the Geass, explaining what it can do using an example like if he ordered Yuffie to kill all the 11s, she would. And the power activates without his consent, brainwashing Yuffie to kill all the 11s. Yet again, the Geass weaponizes Lelouch's ego against him, because it's not the first time Lelouch has seen this. In fact, he saw Mao go through the exact same thing, losing control of his Geass. But since Lelouch saw himself a better man than Mao, his ego would never let him entertain the possibility that he can lose control. And the arrogance delivers the Geass what it wants, because Lelouch's addiction to the power leads to repeated use, allowing the power to mature, activating permanently, no longer in Lelouch's control. And the symbolism here is beautiful because we've seen the Geass offer Lelouch choices: let Suzaku die or come forward as Clovis's killer, weaken Britannia, or save your friends, let Shirley suffer or lose her forever. But there are no longer choices. The only path is to kill Yuffie and use that to defeat Britannia, as the power forces Lelouch to cross another line. Before he would kill enemies and sacrifice allies, but those people meant nothing to him. But for the first time, Lelouch is forced to look someone he cares about right in the eyes and kill them with his own hands. And the sacrifice answers his ambition, as the massacre mobilizes huge swaths of the Japanese resistance to fight back. Lelouch now rests at the helm of the Black Rebellion. And as the war plays out, he finds himself in a battle with Cornelia, delivering the ultimate insult when he uses the Geass to have one of her trusted generals defeat her. He then uses the power to find his mother's killer, but the moment is empty. Cornelia played no part. In fact, his own mother ordered her to get rid of the guards, leaving an opening. And like always, the Geass demands a price, as a new set of consequences light Lelouch's world on fire. Because the chaos Lelouch creates with his own rebellion leaves Nanali defenseless. And Vivi, an entity similar to Cece and the Emperor's ally, abducts Nanali. There's a telepathic link between Vivi and Cece, so Cece informs Lelouch of Nanali's abduction out loud. And Cornelia overhears Cece's warning, so she must be detained. But Lelouch fails, because Jeremiah, the one whose life Lelouch at every corner destroyed using the Geass's power, gets in the way. Given his constant demotions, Britannia used him as a guinea pig, to create a super soldier. And he's formidable enough to fight both Lelouch and Cece all the way to Kamine Island where Nanali is held. But failing to secure Cornelia is what cements Lelouch's defeat, because Cornelia tells Suzaku everything, who Zero is and where he's going, which lets Suzaku confront Lelouch, disarm him, and present him to the Emperor. All the while, the Black Knights lose the rebellion with only a few able to escape. And Lelouch discovers the Emperor has his own Geass, which rewrites the memories of his victims. And he alters Lelouch's mind, erasing memories of the Geass and everything which followed, creating a whole new fabricated reality for Lelouch, which excludes Nanali. As the Geass delivers the mother of all consequences, as Lelouch is able to defeat Cornelia, but loses Nanali in the process.
That's right. It wasn't me who was wrong. It was the world!
So we have Lelouch living a slice of life high school anime, but Cece is not gonna allow it. She rescues him with the remaining Black Knights and erases the Emperor's Geass. And upon reawakening, the only thing Lelouch wants is Nanali, falling into the same vicious cycle, fixing the consequences of the Geass using the Geass. Because he lost Nanali using the power, and now he has to use it to get her back. And Lelouch's first step is to engineer a devastating explosion to kill the current leader of Area 11. Then Lelouch uses the Geass to control a high-ranking Chinese diplomat, using their consulate within Britannia as a base. Lelouch broadcasts a triumphant return as Zero, but this time, the stakes are higher because Britannia holds Nanali hostage. To keep her safe, Lelouch has to pretend to not have his memories. So he gets clever, attending school but using proxies to deliver his command. But the rules haven't changed, as the Geass always demands a price. Because Lelouch's broadcast gets Suzaku's attention, who currently is one of the highest ranking knights, as a reward for Lelouch's capture. And obviously he suspects Lelouch is Zero. And even though Lelouch's act is perfect, Suzaku shakes him, because killing the current leader of Area 11 makes way for a new one. And Suzaku introduces her, Nanali. Lelouch's entire reason for toppling Britannia was to avoid Nanali's use as a political pawn, but using the Geass made this situation inevitable. Lelouch couldn't stand it, and his mission to rescue Nanali is chaos personified. But the casualties are nothing compared to what he learns face to face with Nanali as Zero. That she chose this. She wants to carry out Yuffie's will. She disavows Zero and chooses Britannia over him. And on paper, there is no place safer for Nanali than with Britannia and Suzaku. But this moment completely breaks Lelouch, because fixing the consequences of the Geass using the Geass led to horrific things, like killing Shirley's father, erasing her memories, and killing Yuffie. Lelouch can no longer hide behind the means justifying the ends, because the domino of events stemming from the Geass stole that away, as Lelouch realizes his actions only hurt Nanali. She wants to live a peaceful life with Lelouch, but that's impossible because Lelouch started a rebellion. She wants to reenact the Special Administrative Zone, but that's impossible because the Geass massacred Yuffie's reputation. There is no better time than now for Lelouch to give up being Zero, but he won't, because he's addicted to the Geass's power, and its use must have a purpose. If it doesn't exist, then Lelouch will create one. Following a touching encounter with his friends, Lelouch gives us an analogy, comparing glass to happiness. Like glass, you can't see when happiness is there, but if you change your perspective, you can notice it. Lelouch admits that happiness is being surrounded by friends and family, so he vows to reunite everyone and go back to the days before the Geass. But does anyone else want that? Let's take Colin for example, the ace pilot of the Black Knights and an important part of Lelouch's friend group. Does she want to return to the academy? No, Colin's only goal is to topple Britannia and free Japan, which goes against Nanali and Suzaku's goal of helping Japan from within Britannia. Lelouch's desire is a fantasy, but he can't see it because of the sinister way the Geass conditioned him. And there's a great example of this in the past. During their first battle on Kamine Island, Lelouch tried to reason and bring Suzaku over to his side. But Suzaku overpowers Lelouch and the Britannians want to nuke them both, and Suzaku is a willing sacrifice. Desperate to save Suzaku, Lelouch uses the Geass and orders him to live no matter what, which forces Suzaku to release Lelouch and escape, saving them both. But the order goes against Suzaku's very soul given his past, because Suzaku's father is the prime minister in charge during Britannia's initial invasion. And when his father wouldn't surrender, Suzaku killed him to end the conflict. And the guilt defined Suzaku's life because he was never punished. The higher-ups invented a convenient cover story to welcome Britannian rule. So Suzaku joins the military, putting his life on the line to atone for his choice. And whether you agree or not, the choice is his, and Lelouch erases it to impose his will, the same way he erased Shirley's memory, despite her objection. So far, we've seen the Geass isolate Lelouch physically, robbing loved ones from his life. But now we see it isolate him mentally, blinded to even what his loved ones want. And the more Lelouch chases this fantasy with the cursed power, the worse the consequences get. The first part of Lelouch's plan to rescue Nanali is by capturing Vivi and trading Vivi for her life. And through intelligence, Lelouch learns that Vivi is based in the Chinese Federation. So Lelouch launches a coup to overthrow their leadership so he can use their resources to find Vivi. And he succeeds, but in the process, loses Colin, who's taken prisoner during the coup. The more Lelouch pushes to reunite his friends, the more violent the consequences get. Because Lelouch's success in leading a double life is facilitated by the little brother the Emperor replaced for Nanali, Rollo, a Britannian assassin tasked with killing Lelouch should his memories return. So why is he helping Lelouch? From the beginning, Lelouch knew that Rollo would be a problem since the Emperor handpicked him. So he uses the Geass to infiltrate Rollo's headquarters and reads files to find Rollo's weakness. He sets up an ambush which fails because Rollo has his own Geass, which stops the physical sensation of time. So Lelouch's only option is to twist what Rollo wants. Because from the files, he learned that Rollo is desperate for a family. And Rollo really latched on to this fake brother act, so Lelouch plays it up, pretending to be a caring older brother. It's obviously fake, but Rollo wants to believe it. And to cement his deception, Lelouch enacts a plan where he saves Rollo from a fatal shot. But in reality, he was the one who set up that shot using the Geass. Lelouch despised Rollo for daring to take Nanali's place, wanting to use him, and mercilessly discard him. However, Rollo had his own plan, wanting to take Nanali's place by helping Lelouch. But this toxic relationship sets off a chain reaction, changing Lelouch's dream into a nightmare. Because an old nemesis Jeremiah resurfaces, now an elite assassin due to Vivi's experimentation with the ability to erase the effects of the Geass. And he uses this power on Shirley, dispelling both the Emperor and Lelouch's Geass. And Shirley loses it because nothing around her makes sense. Nanali leads Area 11 and her teacher is someone she shot. And Shirley almost dies when she reaches out to Suzaku for help because they run into Lelouch and she remembers that Lelouch is her father's murderer. However, when Lelouch desperately risks his life to save her, it clashes with the image of a cold murderer. And Shirley decides to forgive him, knowing how much he must be suffering being separated from Nanali. However, Jeremiah finds Lelouch and they get into a fight. Shirley is ordered to evacuate but chases Lelouch, running into Rollo, who arrives as backup. Shirley asks Rollo for his help to save Lelouch and to reunite him with the one person he cares for most in the world, Nanali. But this sends Rollo over the edge because just the mention of Nanali triggers a deep jealousy within him. And saying Nanali is the one who will make Lelouch happy challenges everything Rollo fought for. So Rollo murders Shirley in cold blood. Once the chaos subsides and Lelouch finds Shirley, it devastates him. Because if he didn't use the Geass on Shirley, she would never be here. If he didn't use the Geass on Jeremiah, this wouldn't have happened. But what breaks Lelouch is discovering Rollo killed Shirley. Because if he never tried to use Rollo, then Shirley would still be alive. The symbolism is both beautiful and tragic because Lelouch was certain he can tame the Geass. He saw it break Mao, but chalked it up to weakness. He saw the Geass turn Yuffie into a murder princess, but he excused it as a mistake. And the consequences of this unearned hubris is a physical manifestation of the Geass, Rollo, who Lelouch thought he could control. But with Shirley's death, Lelouch realizes he was never in control, and this power is pure evil. It's deeply poetic because the Geass dangles the hope of reuniting everyone in front of Lelouch in the same way Lelouch dangled the hope of a free Japan in front of his troops. He isn't the owner of the power, he's a victim, and the goal of reuniting everyone is gone, leaving a darker one in its place.
I'll erase Geass from all the others. Its power to make people sinful will be obliterated from this world.
Lelouch vows to crush the Geass for toying with Shirley, and his first step is to attack Vivi and destroy the organization which creates Geass users. And the battle is catastrophic, but Lelouch emerges the victor. But before Vivi's capture, Lelouch is teleported to a mysterious metaphysical realm by none other than his father. And Lelouch wants nothing more than to kill this man. So it's Geass versus Geass. However, Lelouch has a trick. Normally, he wears lenses to stop the power from activating, but he removes them and uses a broken mirror as a reflective surface to bounce the Geass into his father's eyes, ordering him to die, and the Emperor does. But Lelouch's celebration is short-lived when his father miraculously wakes up, and Cece explains the reason behind his immortality and why she's familiar with the Emperor. It's explained by the other side of the contract what Lelouch owes Cece for the Geass, because Cece possesses a code, the mark on her head which grants her immortality and the power to bestow the Geass. And Cece wants to lose this code because immortality for her is a prison. She can't die no matter how much she wants to, but the code can only be transferred to a recipient of the Geass whose power is matured, and that can only happen through repeated use. This is how Cece initially received her code, by receiving her Geass and then having it mature. This is why the Emperor is immortal, because his contract is with Vivi, and given his matured power, he stole Vivi's code. And this finally explains why the Geass fostered Lelouch's addiction, because inheriting the code is its ultimate goal. But Cece got in the way of the Geass. She completely abandoned the plan she had from the very beginning to transfer her code over to Lelouch, having the Emperor take it from her instead, because she couldn't bear the thought of condemning Lelouch to eternal life. She spared him because she cared about him. And Lelouch, in turn, cared about her, because when the Emperor offers to take Cece's code, Lelouch begs her not to die. Cece hears him out and interrupts the process, but it fractures her mind, erasing centuries of memories. She only remembers life before the Geass, becoming someone Lelouch didn't recognize, as the Geass, yet again, steals another irreplaceable existence from Lelouch's life. With no one to help him, Lelouch's mistakes only get worse, because on Lelouch's way out, he damages that metaphysical realm and assumes that his father is stuck there. So he plans to use this opening to rescue Nanali, but the Emperor surprises him moments before trying. Lelouch spirals because the Emperor knows his memories are back, and Nanali is in danger. And even though Suzaku hates him for what he did to Yuffie, he's Lelouch's only hope. Lelouch begs him to save Nanali, but Suzaku demands a meeting and takes his anger out on Lelouch. But ultimately, he does accept the request to protect Nanali. However, unknown to either of them, the Britannians tailed Suzaku, and Lelouch is captured, but is able to escape using the power of the Geass. But the experience further poisons Lelouch's mind, because he sees it as the ultimate betrayal. He risked everything to come meet Suzaku, only to suffer treachery. There is no going back, as Lelouch loses another friend. So, in a bit of desperation, he pins all of his happiness on the only person who matters, Nanali. He raids the Tokyo settlement, and the battle goes in his favor when a task force frees Kallen. But unknown to him, Suzaku is armed with an experimental weapon of mass destruction, the Flea. Suzaku would never use it, but when he's about to die, the command Lelouch placed in him to live no matter what activates. He launches the Flea, causing an explosion the likes of which humanity had never seen, as it wipes out countless civilians and Nanali in the process. The very power Lelouch inherits to protect Nanali is the very one which ends up killing her, because Suzaku would happily embrace his own death before endangering Nanali. But because Lelouch rewrites Suzaku's values to what he sees fit, he murders his own sister. The Geass weaponizes Lelouch's ego into the ultimate isolation, crumbling his mind. And even the Black Knights turn on him because Britannia tells them about the Geass. And Lelouch finds himself with nothing else to pursue but death and revenge. So Lelouch tracks his father to ancient ruins, and through them, he enters the floating temple in the metaphysical realm. But this time, he blows up the entrance as the ultimate sacrifice, trapping both himself and his father forever. This is Lelouch's way to atone and rid the world of the Geass. And when he questions his father, wanting to know his mother's killer, the answer comes from a place he never expected. Marianne, his own mother, materializes within that strange realm to explain everything. The bloody history behind the Emperor's succession, filled with lies and treachery, and the resulting trauma leads the Emperor and Vivi to form a pact to end all deception. And when Charles falls for Marianne, she joins the pact with Cece. And Marianne receives her own Geass, the ability to cross into the minds of others. But how do you end something human like deception? For that, we have to explore what God means in this world. It's not a bearded man in the sky. It's a giant collective of human consciousness named the World of Sea. Think of it like a wall which separates every person's mind, granting them all individuality. The Emperor plans to destroy the World of Sea, breaking those walls and merging all consciousness together, which makes lying and deception impossible. And this floating temple called the Sword of Akash is the weapon for the job, but it only works with the power of two separate codes, those markings on both Vivi and Cece's head. So it was up to the Emperor and Marianne to complete their contracts and inherit the codes. However, along the way, Vivi grows jealous of Marianne and ends up killing her. But Marianne uses her Geass to cross over to another body to save herself. And now both Marianne and the Emperor want to finally destroy the World of Sea and try to convince Lelouch that it's a good idea because it merges all minds together, those in the past and the present. So it allows Lelouch to see Yuffie, Shirley, and Nanali again. But here we see a powerful moment of growth for Lelouch, because he right away recognizes that his parents are making the same mistake, wishing to merge every mind together without ever asking, does anyone really want this? So he rejects them and interrupts their attack by using his matured Geass to command the World of Sea to fight back, destroying the Sword of Akash and wiping his parents out of existence. And for the first time ever, Lelouch breaks the vicious cycle, the tragedy of using the Geass to fix the consequences of the Geass. Because if he was still stuck there, letting his parents destroy the World of Sea would be exactly what he wants. Because every tragic death that Lelouch caused would no longer matter. All of his mistakes would be forgiven. But for the first time, he chooses what his loved ones want over his ego. Because he knows Shirley, Nanali, and Yuffie would never want this. Because throughout their lives, they've shown him that the good and the bad is what makes life worth living, marking the only moment where Lelouch truly wields the Geass for the people he cares for the most. And this profound growth is what leads Lelouch to enacting his ultimate plan, the Zero Requiem. And he finds an unlikely ally in Suzaku, who was there the entire time to watch Lelouch defy his parents. So the two plan to concentrate the world's evil onto themselves. So Lelouch uses his Geass to become Britannia's next emperor, and Suzaku acts as his sword, the Knight of Zero. And with their combined might, they conquer the world, but do meet resistance from the Black Knights. The Knights, desperate to stop Lelouch, ally themselves with Lelouch's older brother, Schneisel, who pilots the Damocles, a floating castle armed with countless flea, the perfect weapon to rule the world. And Lelouch's biggest obstacle is revealed to be Nanali, because he had no idea she narrowly escaped the blast. Schneisel puts her in charge of the flare to deter Lelouch, and it works because he does hesitate. Lelouch knows deep inside that he has to die to rid the world of this cursed power. But right in front of him, there is one last chance to reunite with the person he loves the most. But all of Lelouch's hesitation vanishes when he meets Nanali face to face, learning that she has the same exact plan. Nanali plans to concentrate the world's anger onto herself with the Flaya. So without even a second thought, Lelouch crosses the final line, using the Geass to take the weapon from her hands. But regardless of the use, the evil nature of the power never changes. So it must die with him, which leads us to our final scene where a triumphant Lelouch, the ruler of the world through fear, is killed by Suzaku dressed up as Zero. With the world's hatred directed at him and his subsequent death, it paves way for what Lelouch had always wanted, because he describes the Geass as a wish, but rather than a genie's lamp, it's the monkey's paw. Because Lelouch creates a gentle world for Nanali, but the catch is that he could never be a part of it.